I'm Jamie Adrian, and joining me today is Ann Campbell. It is December 20th, 2011, and we are on the campus of McDaniel College. Thank you, Ann, for being with us today and sharing your memories. Can you tell me where and when you were born?
I was born in Dover, New Hampshire in 1965. I am actually a Clough on my lineage line, so I'm 14th generation New Hampshire on that side of the family and 9th generation New England on the other side of the family.
Great. And when did you come to Carroll County?
In 2005 I got married and my husband had a job with IBM, so we settled in Union Bridge, but on the Frederick County side of the line in what's actually Johnsonville. And I started job hunting, which eventually led to McDaniel, and I worked here for 6.5 years.
What sort of positions have you had here at McDaniel?
Just the one position. I'm the office manager for campus safety, so I'm the dispatch supervisor and I fill in on odd shifts when someone can't make it, plus I work a 40-hour office manager week.
Wonderful. And how has security changed on campus?
Well, we're a lot more aware, especially since Virginia Tech, again, that anything can happen. So there's a more of a hypervigilance. Our officers are pepper spray certified now, which was a new thing right as I arrived. And that's very serious because pepper spray is very painful and it will stop you in your tracks. And the guys definitely don't ever want to have to deploy it because there's always blowback into their own faces, so it's never a one-way trip. But we have the pepper spray available on their belt, so we have the emergency cleanup kits available in our office space if they're needed. So, it's a serious thing because it's just a scary world out there.
What is it that you like about being here at McDaniel? And
Well, my favorite thing is taking grad classes. I'm taking classes for my master's in liberal arts. I'm at the end of it now. I've done all my requirements and I'm just taking the fun ones. So this semester I took the art of still life, and next semester I'm taking figure painting and digital photography. So it's been a lot of fun. I've had some great classes like poetry and a class in gerontology, a young adult literacy class, a lot of variety, the sports nutrition class.
Are you doing this for your own education, or do you actually want to pursue something different?
Just for myself. I wanted to take classes, get my master's. It's all just for me. There is no, I am definitely a round peg in a round hole with my job. I love it. So, it's the classes are totally for my benefit, just to continue learning and to learn new things. And painting is definitely something I have to work at because I haven't got any artistic talent. I just keep trying. But my sister's a real artist, the kind that actually earns money for her painting. And that's my goal, is to someday actually be as good as her.
That's great. So you said you had lived in Union Bridge, is that correct? When did you move then into Carroll County?
In 2007, I got divorced, so I got an apartment here in Westminster. And in 2009, I got a child back on my lap because she decided to come here and go to school, but she didn't like dorm life very much. So I shouldn't say child, since she was obviously an 18-year-old young adult at that point. But she didn't want to live in the dorms, and so I started house hunting, and that was what brought me to Middleburg and caused me to buy the Macklin house.
Now tell me about this Macklin house. It sounds like it's got an interesting history.
It does have an interesting history. Besides being built in 1800 out of log, the Macklin house was used as headquarters for the Army of the Potomac on June 29th, 1863. Now I phrase it that way because any history buff just sat up straight and went bing, because they recognized the fact that that was the cusp of the Battle of Gettysburg. So it was right at that point that I made some notes that General Joseph Hooker was relieved of command, and Major General George Gordon Meade of Pennsylvania took over as commander of the Army of the Potomac. He made the Macklin House his headquarters, probably because it was the only house standing in the area. The other houses that are there are all farmhouses, but they were built at later times. You can tell from the architect that it's definitely the oldest house in the area. It's now been covered with yellow siding, and the walls are still a good handspan thick because they're log, and so it's interesting. Like the window wells are very deep, and the door frames are all very deep. The transitions in the floor, you can tell that they're log transitions. The house itself has older home uniqueness in that it's a little slanted on its roof line, but it's got a historic marker in front of it, and it tells about what cavalry units went where and what ones skirmished where and where the artillery was at the time, and all kinds of notes like that about the Army of the Potomac. And it talks about the skirmishes here in Westminster that occurred at that time, which were a major factor in the Union Army's winning. I don't want to say "are" because you never know who may be watching. The Union Army's winning at the Battle of Gettysburg because it delayed Jeb Stuart's cavalry just enough that he wasn't the factor that he should have been at the Battle of Gettysburg. So the house played an important role in being central to all of that activity that was going on. The Macklins themselves are very interesting. Mr. Macklin was the only person in the county to vote Republican, and that means that he actually voted third party because President Lincoln ran on the National Union Party, and the Democrat candidate was General McClellan. So it was the Republican candidate that he voted for, and that was probably the start of third party voting. I don't think it was very popular back then, but I do know he was the only person that cast his vote that way in the 1864 election. I have a newspaper article about the Macklins that just says that Mrs. Macklin was Elizabeth Ann Hahn Macklin, and she lived in Middleburg from the Civil War until early 1900, and that Mr. Macklin lived also until the early 1900s from Civil War time in that area. So they both were long-lived, people by the time they died. The house didn't pass through there weren't many generations of owners. So I thought that was interesting because houses today, it's just flip, 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 flip.
Right.
And then it was, you owned it for life.
Now, did the history of the house, is that what spoke to you? What encouraged you to buy that?
That was a big part of what caused me to buy the house. The location, it's only 13 miles out of town. I wanted to be in a more rural setting. Then it's strange to think of Westminster as the big city, but it is. The rural setting, the lot of land that it's on, you can tell that it was all farmland at one point, and we still have a cow pasture just up over the hill. We're on a well, and so those are all things that, to me, were benefits because I wanted to be able to take a walk in a neighborhood where people wave to you or stop and ask if you need a ride because they're not used to seeing people walking on the side of the road. So that's, it's a community. It's really nice. It's just a very little town. There isn't even a stop sign, much less a stop light on the main road. You have to turn on Crouse Mill Road to hit a stop sign.
Okay. Is it just the house, or is there any outbuildings that were with the property?
One of the outbuildings is probably original to the property. It's been moved, and you can tell that it's been moved, but it's definitely an older smokehouse that has been converted and is now just a shed. And then there's a new shed that was built by the owners prior to me, the Daughertys, that they built one of those Amish sheds. And that's very well made, solid shed, but it's not at all historic. It's just pretty.
What sort of, well, I guess I should back up. You said the house has been designated a historic property?
I don't know if the house itself is designated historic or if it's just that it has the historic marker from the Battle of Gettysburg in it. I think that's the historic part about it. No one ever told me that I couldn't do anything to the outside, and someone in the 50s definitely, I hate to use the word ruined, but I can't think of any other word, ruined any historical appreciation for the exterior by clapping yellow vinyl across the whole thing. But, you know, sometimes you have to do that with older homes. It just, you know, there's no choice insulation value-wise.
Right, I know a lot of them have to be that way for insulation.
You just have to do it.
Well, that was my question, is that could you make any changes? Have you made any changes, or have you tried to preserve any parts of the home?
There's really not much left to preserve except the fireplace. So that we have. We had it lined, repointed, and capped so that it was usable because it had a chimney fire. So in the state that we bought it in, it wasn't a usable chimney. We've repaired that, and we've started the process of repairing the face of the chimney, the exterior face of the chimney, on the inside of the house. So right now it's just a mix of, it's very interesting, black sand and red brick. It's like they didn't bother to match their bricks for decoration purposes. They just used whatever was to hand. So some of the bricks are different colors and they're not all exactly matched with wise, and you can definitely tell it was original work by an owner as opposed to professional work by a mason. I'm hoping to get a mason to come in and look at it and advise me about lining the sides because the mortar is chipping out, so it has to be worked on. It's usable now because I have a wood stove insert in there, but I don't want it to deteriorate further, so there are some pieces of work that have to be done to it.
Have you made any interesting discoveries in the house or on the property, or have any of the previous residents that you know of made any interesting discoveries?
I do know that the previous residents had the metal detector out and did the whole basement and yard and all that, and had a whole ball of fun with doing that kind of stuff. We found some old silver in the house, old silverware that was truly silver, and we kept it, so we have that we can put up on display in our shadow box. I have no idea whether it dates back to the Civil War or not, but it's interesting. It's a pretty pattern, and it's not at all a modern butter knife. It's definitely the older kind of knife, so it's kind of cool just to have it and know that it belonged to the previous owners. The house had settled and the kitchen floor needed to be replaced, so when we pulled up the kitchen floor, we found things underneath it that were just interesting. Somebody had a weights and measurement system at one time that they must have lost the weights to because we found the weights under the floor. So we have those if whoever owned them wants to come claim them.
Neat. And what do you want to see done with the house in the future?
Well, if I could do anything, I'd take the vinyl siding off, re-expose the log, repair it the right way out. I don't see that happening because the cost would just be prohibitive, but that would be what I'd do. And I'd paint the roof silver. It's currently black, and the neighbors are both silver. I'd rather match than be black. I'd do some stuff with the yard. I'd love to have a really big garden back there with 3/4 of an acre. There's a lot of space to have the well, the septic, and a good garden without any interference with each other. And so that's one of my goals, is to have a garden that is actually fruits and vegetables. And I want to be able to make my own tomato sauce because I like tomato sauce with carrots and sugar and not with just tomatoes and meat.
What else? Is there anything else about the house that you'd like to share with us?
Nothing I can think of. It's just an interesting old house. has a weird staircase. It's very unique.
What's so unique about it?
Well, whoever built it either didn't know what they were doing or didn't have any other choice, but they pied in the pieces instead of landing, which was apparently common for contractors and builders of the 1800 period, but they brought it up to the chimney wall. So then when somebody, presumably in the 50s or 60s, because it was done with paneling, framed in the chimney, they left no space for a landing at the top of the stairs. There's literally a 2-inch, I kid you not, 2-inch landing at the top of the stairs. So you have to step around the wall of the chimney every time you go up and down the stairs. That's kind of like, why would someone do that? And in the typicalness of old homes, you have to walk through one bedroom to get to the other bedroom and to get to the bathroom. And that's just something that, unless you're willing to put up with that, can be very annoying. You know, when my daughter, because, you know, it's been 3 years now, and my daughter still lived there, the only thing I wanted her to do was keep a path between the bedrooms and her bathroom. That's all, just a path. But a path was apparently too much to ask for. But luckily, things are much better now because she has her own apartment, and her 5 rats and her 3 cats can happily live in her apartment rather than live in my house. So,
are there any other neat or interesting architectural elements? You know, you mentioned the deep window wells and door frames. Are there any other sort of interesting elements like that?
I don't know if you'd call it interesting. Annoying might be the best word. The ceiling height is typical for the older homes, and that means that if I have a friend come over who's taller than 6'2", he has to be very careful about where he puts his head. So, you know, luckily that's not much of a problem for most of my friends. I only have 1 or 2 that are a little too tall for my house. So,
are there any other original fixtures that you've discovered on the house?
when we took the kitchen apart, we discovered the wood walls were still there, and there wasn't really any way to showcase it because the cabinets were going right back up. So we still had to just drywall over it and put the cabinets back up. And I was very tempted to just do without the cabinet space and let the natural wood walls show through.
Mm-hmm.
But the, you know, needs of the 21st century, or what are we in the 22nd century, ran through, and we needed the cabinet space more than we needed to show off the log walls. But it's interesting. We do have one log showing at the top of the cabinetry. We just didn't recover it with drywall and ground molding. We let it show because it's neat, and it has some of the original green paint on it, which, if you know your paint history, shows that the homeowners went through a period of wealth because that was a very expensive color at the time. It's the same color that George Washington's family dining room is painted in, and it was a sign of wealth to have your rooms painted in that color.
Neat. Sounds like a very very interesting house with lots of character to it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, is there anything else that you want to share with us today about the house or Middleburg or any of the surrounding area?
Just how much I love the area. You know, I really am glad that I got married and moved down here and got divorced and stayed. I think staying here, when I had a choice a couple of years ago, has worked out as a very good choice. The area has really been uniquely special to me, you know, not just with getting my master's degree, but with using the public library system was just amazing down here. Having the whole world just open up to you. I have a Nook and I can download anything I want from the public library for free. And it just works great. And I've been very happy with the Carroll County and Westminster services that are available. So it's been a nice stay in Carroll County.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again, Anne, for sharing your memories with us today.